Good to have you with us on this Monday evening. I'm Daniel Chen. Let's start with the headlines. The main opposition party's efforts for a revote on a vetoed revision of the parliamentary law is effectively nullified as the ruling Saenuri Party refuses to participate. South Korean former First Lady Heeho, widow of late President Kim Dae-jung, who played a key role in establishing the first historic inter-Korean summit, prepares for another visit to North Korea on August 5th. Although she'll be focused on providing aid to children in Pyongyang, her trip could help thaw frosty inter-Korean relations. The people of Greece have spoken. They want to secure a better deal from international creditors. Some analysts say it could lead to Greece switching back to its old currency. Let's start at the National Assembly, where a revote on a vetoed revision of the parliamentary law was finally held. The revision, as expected, faced a likelihood of being scrapped as the ruling Saenuri Party, which holds the majority at the Assembly, did not participate in the vote. Let's connect to our National Assembly correspondent Park Jiwon for the details. Jiwon?
Hello, Daniel. Monday's full assembly finally held a revote on the controversial bill this afternoon after it was vetoed by the President Park late last month. Well, in the case of a revote on vetoed bills, the nation's constitution stipulates that more than half its total members be in attendance, with more than a two-thirds vote in favor required. But only 128 out of 298 total lawmakers participate in the vote, which means the bill will now be automatically scrapped at the end of next May when current lawmakers' terms end. Well, the result was expected as ruling Saenuri Party, which holds a majority at the Assembly, reconfirmed its position on the revote this morning. The vetoed revision of the National Assembly Act would have allowed the Assembly to make requests for changes to executive ordinances not in accordance with the related law. But President Park Geunhye vetoed the bill on the grounds that it threatens the constitutional principle of division of powers.
Well, I don't think many people were taken by surprise with that turn of events. Jiwon, let's look at other area of heated debate at the Assembly. Ruling party lawmakers loyal to President Park have been pressing the party's embattled floor leader Yoo Seung-min to resign, and they've even given him until the end of the day. What's expected to happen there, Jiwon?
Well, Daniel, ever since President Park criticized the floor leader's role in the vetoed parliamentary law, he has been under constant pressure to step down. However, Yoo Seung-min has continued on with his regular duties. He still has the support of a sizable number of Saenuri lawmakers, and polls have indicated public support as well. Well, speculation is rife at this point. Some think that he will stay on, while others think that he will wait until the July extraordinary session is over before stepping down, and no one knows for sure as of now. As we mentioned, today is the deadline that pro-President Park figures have set for him to resign. And if he doesn't, the current internal strife within the party is likely to get worse. And I will bring you more updates in our later newscast. This is Park Jiwon reporting live from the National Assembly in Seoul. Back to you.
Okay, thank you for that, Jiwon. Let's move over to some encouraging numbers for President Park Geunhye. Her approval rating has jumped nearly 4 percentage points days after her vetoing of the revision to the National Assembly law on June 25th. In Real Meters poll conducted last week, 37.3% out of 2,500 respondents supported the president's running of state affairs. That's up 3.7 percentage points from a week earlier. The pollster said the latest findings reflect those who consider themselves politically leaning to the right, uniting to support President Park after she vetoed a bill that would allow the parliament to request changes to ordinances. The president's approval rating had recently hit an all-time low of 29% amid public criticisms over the government's poor handling of the MERS outbreak in the country. President Park Geunhye says the compatibility of work and family is essential to national happiness and helping the domestic economy leap forward. Marking this year's first Gender Equality Week, Korea's first female president said examples from advanced nations prove that having active women in the workforce is the basis for strong national competitiveness and the key to speeding up economic development. Citing government programs that help women maintain jobs after starting a family, President Park said the government will continue to help Koreans strike a balance between work and family and urged businesses to do their part. The president also recognized the efforts of those from different sectors in society that have contributed to gender equality in Korea. Former First Lady Heeho, the widow of late President Kim Dae-jung, will visit North Korea during the first week of next month. Her visit is largely aimed at providing much-needed help to North Korean children, but some are hoping it will contribute to easing strained inter-Korean relations. Our Han Da-eun has this report.
South Korean delegates from a peace center established by late President Kim Dae-jung met with their North Korean counterparts on Monday to discuss the much-anticipated visit of former First Lady Lee Hee-ho's visit to the north. After the meeting held in north-south border town of Kaesong, South Korean Chief Delegate Kim Sung-jae said that Lee will fly to Pyongyang on August 5th for her 4-day trip, which will be mainly focused on providing aid to North Korean children. She's expected to visit children's hospitals and daycare centers in the reclusive state's capital. Whether she'll meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un remains unknown. But pundits say the chances of their encounter are high, as Kim views late President Kim Dae-jung, who played a leading role in realizing the first-ever inter-Korean summit in 2000, in a favorable light. Hopes are high that her visit could contribute to thawing the icy relations between Seoul and Pyongyang. The South Korean government has not relayed any kind of message to Lee, but stated that it fully supports her visit. Some also hope that Lee will secure the release of 4 South Koreans currently detained in the north, but experts argue that would be beyond expectations, as freeing detainees requires extensive diplomatic efforts. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
In other news, following months of negotiations, Korea and Japan have reached an agreement on Tokyo's bid to list some of its wartime industrial facilities as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. While Tokyo does have some obligations to meet, there are concerns over Japan's sincerity regarding this issue. Our Hwang Sung-hee tells us more.
The World Heritage Committee listed Tokyo's wartime industrial facilities as UNESCO sites at its 39th session in Bonn, Germany on Sunday. The listing, which follows months of negotiations between Korea and Japan, comes with a set of preconditions.
Japan is prepared to take measures that allow an understanding that there were a large number of Koreans and others who were brought against their will and forced to work under harsh conditions in the 1940s at some of the sites.
Japan's 23 industrial sites include 7 coal mines and shipyards, where nearly 60,000 Koreans were forced into labor in the 1940s during its colonial rule of Korea. Tokyo had initially marked them as being operational from 1850 to 1910. Japan also vowed to ensure the victims are remembered by establishing information centers at each site. Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se welcomed the outcome, as it marks the first time that Tokyo has publicly acknowledged such cases of forced labor.
We are pleased that Japan's wartime industrial facilities were listed as World Heritage Sites in the form that takes account of our legitimate concerns.
But tensions remain, with Japan giving an ambiguous translation of its statement for its domestic audience.
The expression forced to work does not mean forced labor.
An official at Seoul's foreign ministry dismissed concerns, saying the English version of the statement has been officially adopted by the World Heritage Committee. He added that Japan must also follow up by submitting a progress report by the end of 2017, which will be reviewed by the World Heritage Committee the following year. If Japan's progress is deemed unsatisfactory, the sites could be removed from the UNESCO list. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
We shift our focus to a country that double dares the EU. Greece has entered uncharted territory after more than 61% of voters on Sunday rejected demands by international creditors for more austerity in exchange for a bailout of its bankrupt economy. And despite the government's victory, the country's finance minister announced his resignation. For details, let's turn to our Kwon So-hwa.
It was a high-risk gamble that Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras took with the future of his country. But in the end, it was a decisive win. The margin of victory was far wider than expected, an indication that many indecisive voters may have been convinced by Tsipras' claim that a no vote would help the country secure a better deal from its international creditors after months of wrangling. After the results were announced, the Greek government said it would try to restart talks with its European partners and reach a conclusion within 48 hours. One person that will not be included in these talks is Greece's Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis, who announced on his blog that he will step down from his post at the request of Prime Minister Tsipras because he is now considered unwelcome at Finance Minister talks by some Eurozone members. Time has run out for Greece, which is dealing with an economy in a protracted recession with high unemployment and banks dangerously low on capital. The international bailout, under which it received nearly 240 billion euros in rescue loans, expired last week. On the same day, Greece defaulted on an International Monetary Fund repayment, becoming the first developed nation to do so. Greece's fate could be decided at a Eurozone summit set to be held on Tuesday. Some analysts say Greece could be forced to switch back to its old currency, the drachma. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Asian stocks opened lower on Monday following the no vote in Greece's referendum. Korea's benchmark Kospi is currently down around 1.2% from Friday's close. According to our Shin Se-min, senior officials from numerous financial organizations in Korea met this morning to draw up a contingency plan to counter the uncertainty.
Korean economic and financial policymakers put their heads together to discuss the latest developments in the financial markets as Greek voters said no to the Eurozone's austerity measures in a high-profile referendum. Senior officials, including Vice Finance Minister Chu Young-hwan and the BOK Senior Deputy Governor, discussed a possible contingency plan to prepare for the impact the Greek vote will have on the local financial market. They concluded that the situation in Greece should be closely monitored as economic, political, and social matters within the Eurozone could be affected. The Finance Ministry added that they will consider the likelihood of a shaky global financial market following the uncertainties in Europe and said Korea will take aggressive measures to protect the local market. Officials, however, said the Korean market is not completely immune to the potential Grexit, as many European banks may withdraw their money from Korea amid continued uncertainties in Europe. The result of the referendum is not expected to have a direct impact on the Korean economy, as Korea's exposure to Greece is minimal. The Financial Supervisory Service says the dealings with the troubled European nation by local banks and non-bank institutions only account for 1.3% of the total overseas lending. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Moving on to the MERS situation here in Korea, health authorities say the country is on the right path to recovery. No new deaths of MERS cases were reported Monday. Local hospitals that have been placed on lockdown due to the outbreak are also reopening and admitting new patients. Our Kim Jiwon gives us the updates.
The worst of the MERS outbreak seems to be over. This is according to Kwon Duk-chul from the Health Ministry's MERS response headquarters on Monday, citing that no new deaths have been reported for a sixth consecutive day. However, Kwon says authorities will remain on alert while strengthening its monitoring system to prevent an infection of medical workers. Meanwhile, local hospitals are gradually reopening to the public, reporting no new MERS cases or deaths at their facilities. In particular, the hospital that confirmed the country's first MERS patient, the Pyeongtaek St. Mary's Hospital, has reopened on Monday, 38 days after being locked down. Officials say they have taken measures to ensure that the hospital is safe and ready to admit new patients. The hospital says it has disinfected the building and installed outdoor clinics to stop patients with infectious diseases from entering. It has also upgraded its wards by converting rooms that used to hold up to 7 people into rooms with a maximum capacity of 4. Health authorities gave the go-ahead to resume operations last month, but the hospital's management voluntarily delayed reopening until Monday as a precautionary measure. This now means there are currently less than 7 hospitals in Korea in a state of lockdown due to the MERS outbreak. Kim Jiwon, Arirang News.
The bodies of 10 Koreans who died in the fatal bus crash in China last week were returned to their homeland on Monday. The Ministry of Government Administration and Home Affairs has confirmed that the victims' bodies arrived at Incheon International Airport at around 1 p.m. this afternoon, along with 37 bereaved family members and 10 government officials who responded to the accident in China. According to the ministry, the bodies were then transferred to hospitals in the regions where the victims worked. Last week, a bus carrying 26 Korean public officials veered off a bridge in the northeastern Chinese city of Jiwon, killing 11 people, including the Chinese bus driver. 16 Koreans who survived the bus crash are now recovering at hospitals in China. And that's all from us for now. We have more coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time, so do join us then. Thank you for watching.